out that they're not going to get the $30 tabs that they voted for, so many times, and they're being told that they were confused or may have been confused. And I think what's frustrating is that the description that was written by the Attorney General. And I believe the Attorney General did not do his job, was not aggressive enough when it came to the defense of the initiative. At no time did he actually make what's called a motion to change venue, meaning that a King County judge making a decision when one of the plaintiffs is King County, his own employer. The whole thing was a conflict. The fact that the AG's office never even made that argument just makes it look like the fix was in.
The city attorney today said it's, as far as they're concerned, this is Pete Holmes I'm talking about.
Yeah, sure.
That they believe it's proof that the voters were lied to.
I think that there's no doubt that the voters knew exactly what they were voting on. The other side had every advantage. They had $5 million, they had all the media, they had everybody talking about it. But in the voters' pamphlet itself, the opponent said, if you vote for this initiative, you will be overturning voter-approved taxes and fees like light rail and at the local level. The voters knew exactly what they were voting on because the opponents told them that, both in the voters' pamphlet and publicly. The idea that voters were confused, they don't even have any evidence that somebody was confused. They just think it's possible they were, based on a ballot title not written by the sponsors, but written by the Attorney General.
I mean, did you expect the injunction?
I honestly thought that if it was not in King County, there's no way they would, because the bar is so incredibly high in order to be able to get a preliminary injunction, because it's just this monstrous hassle they're talking about that says, if the initiative's upheld, everyone's going to get a refund check. I mean, you're talking about millions of people throughout the state of Washington. Fundamentally, I believe that the whole system seems so corrupted that you had Seattle city government suing the voters. On the other side, you had an Attorney General, Ferguson, that was conflicted because he was defending Sound Transit, the same taxes targeted by this, decided by a judge that's employed by one of the plaintiffs in the case. It just seems so crooked and so wrong that I think the voters have two things they can do. Push Jay Inslee to have a special session of the legislature, get this thing reinstated, because after December 5th, nobody should be paying more than $30 for their tabs. And the second thing you can do is do what I'm doing. I'm not renewing my tabs because this is just so wrong when the voters pass a law and the lawmakers that they elect aren't willing to respect that decision, instead are suing them.
Isn't there a question, though?
Oh, sorry. Let me bounce back in. Yeah.
Sorry, Steve. I was just going to say.
Oh, please. Yeah. Go ahead.
Isn't there a concern? You're telling people not to pay their car tabs, but they could end up getting fines that they can't pay out.
Well, and I think it's really important for people to always understand, not paying your fine. I'll try that again. It's very important for people to know that not renewing your car tabs is not a crime. It's not a civil infraction. It's not even a moving violation. It is like getting a parking ticket. The fine itself is about $136. My argument is there are millions of vehicles in the state of Washington. The likelihood of being pulled over is slim. The second thing is, if you are pulled over, make it very clear to the officer, your officer, please give me a warning. I'm doing this as a political protest. If someone gets the ticket, do not pay it, appeal it. We want to have thousands of citizens throughout the state fighting these things in court. I've done it before, and the worst they do is the best they do is they knock it down from $136 to about $75. Frankly, that's cheaper than the car tabs bill you're about to get after December 5th. We have to do something, because it's simply wrong for the government to be able to get away with overturning what we clearly knew what we were voting on, and for them to be able to take that away from us and pay $300, $500, $800 for our car tabs after we just voted for $30 tabs. I think that's going to put pressure on the legislature to actually do something.
Civil disobedience, that's really what you've described it as.
That's absolutely is.
That's what it is. But
no, it is peaceful protest. It is absolutely civil disobedience. I absolutely believe it's the right thing to do in a situation like this, where 3 strikes you're out. The voters have voted for this over and over again. They're the lawbreakers, because they're the ones that are not reinforcing the law that we, the people, ended up voting for.
Will you pay the fines for people?
Will not pay the fines for people. Totally fair question. I have made very clear that people should not pay these car tabs. I'm taking the exact same risk that they are, but if you actually do get cited, if you actually do get a ticket, you should appeal it. And when you appeal it, and when you're in court, you call me and I will stand there with you, and I will make sure that I make the same argument that you're going to make is, Your Honor, we are doing peaceful protest here. This is wrong what they're doing to us. Please get rid of this ticket. I have found so many law enforcement officers are very forgiving. They basically use tremendous discretion. And I call on law enforcement in the state of Washington to realize that this is peaceful protest, people standing up for themselves, not because they're cheap, not because they don't want to pay their car tabs. They just simply want to pay the amount that they keep voting for, but that their government won't let them have.
Quickly, it's connected yet not. Melissa
understand.
Wrote a pretty lengthy piece in Crosscut.
Oh, Melissa, yeah, that's awesome.
And the headline is, why do so many people hate Tim Eyman? Coming out of this, after a decision like this today, how do you think you're viewed?
Oh, God. We're going to find out in August, aren't we? No, I am running for governor, and one of the reasons I'm running is because this system does seem so corrupted, because here we are voting overwhelmingly, and yet our elected officials aren't actually responding to that. The question of whether or not people like me or dislike me, I'm putting to the test. So many people have wondered, why is it these initiatives keep passing, but nobody seems to want to be able to vote for anybody but a Democrat? And I'm basically putting that idea to the test and finding out whether or not voters want the ideas that I'm advocating for promoted by the person that has been sponsoring them. And I'm going to run a very issue-oriented agenda so that it's going to be like, if you're voting for me, you're voting for me vetoing any tax increase, me making sure you get your $30 tabs if we have to mail refund checks to everybody, and other things that I'll unfold over the next year. People are going to get to know me, and they're going to either like me or dislike me. But I think what a lot of people are going to realize is it's a choice between a person who says they'll veto tax increases and lost my train of thought there, sorry. I'm a little fried. I think it's going to boil down to a choice. It's between a person like me that's for 21 years advocated for these policies and wants to implement them as the governor, or whether or not you want another 4 years of Jay Inslee, a guy who said he would veto tax increases and raise taxes 29 times over the last 8 years.
But to be fair, to give you a chance to answer, there was an allegation within that article about the reason why you're running for governor is because you need money.
I think the reality is there's no doubt that I am 100% focused on running for governor and making sure that I can advocate for that. There's no doubt that I'm getting sued by the Attorney General, and that's god-awful expensive, and I'm raising tons of money for my legal defense fund. There's no doubt I'm doing that. But the race for governor, I will not be taking any of the campaign funds as a salary or anything like that. All I'm trying to do is to make sure that the people end up getting the policies that they voted on, and unfortunately, the people they keep electing don't respect that decision.
Talk about a corrupt system.
Yeah.
You talk about you're not going to take any payments. What do you tell readers and viewers who might say you're projecting?
Oh.
That you're projecting what you might have been done in your past.
Oh,
as
okay,
the
fair enough.
Responsibility of others.
Yeah. There's no doubt when you advocate for an initiative and you sponsor that initiative, you take ownership of it. And for us, we've done this thing for 20 years. We fought for this policy for 20 different years. And the argument that somehow the voters didn't know what they were voting on, and it was the sponsor's fault that we had a ballot title that somehow confused people, people have to just realize that the sponsor doesn't actually write the ballot title. It's the Attorney General's office that writes the ballot title. It is maddening to me that one of the most basic arguments that you have to make in court is the ballot title is part of it, but everything that's in the voter's pamphlet also is legally relevant. And within the voter's pamphlet argument, the opponents were making the argument, don't vote for this, because if you do, you will overturn these local voter-approved tax increases. The voters knew what they were voting on. And so for me, I just think that it's important for the voters to know that you can do two things. You can advocate for these guys having a special session and implementing the policies that the voters just got through voting on, because clearly voters were not confused. And the second thing you can do is Do not pay your car tabs. It is just simply not fair, not right for the citizens to be forced to pay more than what they've said that they're willing to pay over and over and over again.
It's likely headed for other courts. So do you anticipate that this will succeed where you haven't before?
I think there's no doubt that the voters will eventually get the policies they vote for if they're willing to vote for it enough times. They voted for it enough with ballot measures. It may end up having to be that they have to elect a new governor, but I think at the end of the day, I think that voters see that it's just rife with injustice. The idea that the next time you get a car tab bill and it's $400, $500, $800, and you voted for $30 tabs, that's an angry, pissed off electorate that I think is going to find some way to convey to their elected officials, you better actually react to what we're doing, or else we're just going to end up getting a new crew down there. Hetty? I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So do you think there are any voters who saw that accept voter approved